Guys, porn is back in Hollywood, and I'm so excited about it. I saw Challengers this weekend. This movie will contain like thematic spoilers for Challengers, by the way. So if you don't want any spoilers for this movie, I would say scroll ahead. So I saw Challengers this weekend, finally. I've been super excited about this movie since it was supposed to come out last year and then was postponed because I've been a fan of Mike since back in ye olden days when I had a Newsies phase and a Dear Evan Hansen phase. And if you saw the West Side Story revival, oh my gosh, revival, what am I talking about? Remake by Steven Spielberg. I thought he was just dripping with star power in that movie. I honestly thought he carried. He has so much charisma to carry the screen. So I'm so excited. People are finally starting to talk about him. Josh O'Connor, oh my gosh. This guy is super charming. And obviously Zendaya is like, she's mothering as always. She's wonderful. The thing about sexy movies is I want you to take a think back in Thinktown, back in your mind, of the last like truly like erotic movie you saw. There's this great New York Times article that I wish I could have read about this very topic, but it's behind a paywall, so this video is my response to what I think that would be. But there have been like amazing like sensual movies years and years and years, blah 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 blah. People have tried to do the like sexy blockbuster with Bond and having Bond girls, and like sex appeal in action movies has always been big. And then there's other movies like Brokeback Mountain, Cruel Intentions, that super sensual, but been a while. People talk about Magic Mike coming out in the 10s. But I'm just asking, who is that movie really for? Who is it for? Because it's just dancing men. And I don't think the movie has any actual legs aside from, this is a sexy movie. There's nothing else. I don't care about the movie. I don't care about the characters. I don't care about the plot. I find the whole thing wildly unentertaining. 50 Shades of Grey, the same way. 50 Shades of Grey goes in the other direction. It's too much and not enough at the same time. My bestie Dylan made me watch 50 Shades of Grey, and I thought it was so bland, especially for a movie that's marketing itself to be about eroticism. It's meant to be about, like, it's selling sex. It's selling BDSM, but this movie was so bland and boring. I didn't care about anything in it, and I feel like it can either, like, if it was going to be, like, all sex, like, straight up sex, it could have been that. And it could have been all the build up to that. But it wasn't either. It just kind of laid in this middle ground that made me feel like a puddle. Not like a, like, I was like, not like, oh, I was like, oh, a puddle. I was just like, no, I just felt like I was, like, so meh. Like when you step in a puddle and you're like, this sucks. It's not the worst thing that could have happened to me, but it's not good. That's how that movie made me feel. And both of these movies are not made for women. And hear me out, okay? Who's watching this, right? To make, and also, this is going to have some broad generalizations in terms of sexuality. Just talking about the masses, the way that like studio execs would talk about marketing this movie. Obviously, not everybody would feel this way. But in general, if you're marketing a movie for men, a sensual movie for men, they're not going to watch it. Most men, they would rather watch porn. I'll say that. Okay? So it's either got to be like, sex, but if you're marketing a sexy movie for women, you're not selling the sex scenes. You're selling the idea of them. You're selling the fantasy behind it. And that's why Challengers works. Challengers is a movie for people who Challengers is a movie for people who grew up reading Archive of Our Own, reading Wattpad. You could not pry from my cold dead body the names of the stories I read on there. They were all appropriate, Mom. Don't worry. But this movie is selling the idea of it. Because ultimately, Challengers is a movie about the love of tennis, featuring actors eating incredibly phallic foods with a crazy high amount of sexual tension the entire time. This movie is whiplash for sports. The movie has these three characters, right? And this is where we're going to get into themes real quick. The characters ultimately, if you take a step back from the movie rundown, we have Tashi, Patrick, and Art. This is really not a love line. It's a true love triangle, okay? So there's stuff in the middle between all three of these characters. The director, Luca, makes that very clear in shots of very, like, subtle shots in the way that they direct intimacy and physical touch between characters. It makes it very obvious that it's not a one-sided thing for either character. So that's part of what makes this work. But also the movie isn't just about we're all in love with each other. The movie is about they love tennis more than anything in the world. And that's what the focus is. The focus is there's so much passion in my body for this that it's bleeding all over into my life. And they're breathing it. Tashi, the main character, I mean, she says it in the beginning pretty blatantly. All she cares about is watching good tennis. And every one of her actions makes that very clear. She stirs the pot. She's pushing people to be their best, pushing people to be their best game, living vicariously through the careers of others. Art has always loved the game. And part of the reason that he plays so much is because now he has Tashi and he's fighting for her and he's playing for her. Patrick is strung out when we see him in the first part of this movie. He's playing tennis, but he's just like, he's in his own little world. But they have my favorite scene in this movie is Patrick and Tashi have this amazing conversation when they're about to break up, right before big events of this movie happen, and they're talking about how ultimately Tashi just wants somebody to support her because all she really cares about is tennis. And he says, I could never be that for you. He cares too much about his own career. He cares too much about his future. So he thought it would work because they both have the same kinds of career ambitions. Anyways, I digress. I get aside. This movie works because all of this passion building up and building up and building up. There's no actual sex scenes in this movie. And I saw an interview where Zendaya said that, and I was like, what? There's not. Not like that was the only reason I was going to see the movie. But you don't need it. This movie doesn't need it. Because what sells this movie is the idea of sex. So, again, talking about slight spoilers. It's in the trailer. This shot is in the trailer of the three-way kiss scene. This happens as the three characters are very young, in high school still implied, or just about to go into college. And it's selling the idea of this threesome. This is the slowest scene I've ever seen in my life. Everybody in the movie theater was like, jaw dropped, gagged. Because that's it, right? It's the idea of eroticism. It's a self-insert fanfic. It's Y/N leans to the side and sees one character and turns around and sees another. That's what makes this movie so fun. And that's why movies like Saltburn are working too. Part of what I think works about this movie and selling this sexual fantasy is both of these movies kind of take place in the land of the rich and the famed and the talented. And you're kind of selling this idea of not just sex, but a better life. And not only am I being sexually satisfied, but I have this like amazing things that are happening to me, right? I mean, who sits down to like, you know, be feeling themselves and thinks about them like being poor and sad and like all of these things? Nobody does that. So it's selling the idea of this fantasy, right? Saltburn does the same thing. And that's why that movie also went crazy viral. And I think we're about to see some more art house erotica coming up in the next few years. If you like these movies, check out Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Call Me by Your Name, obviously by the same director. Another great queer sexual tension movie. It's Luca for adults. Anyways, thanks. This has been me. Have a good day, guys.